Flip, 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 Flip Weekly.
Hey, what's going on? It's Matt here from flipweekly.com. You're listening to the very first podcast episode of the Flip Weekly podcast. This is going to be a podcast all about buying items from thrift stores and garage sales and selling them online for a profit. If you're new here, I've been writing a newsletter for the past year, basically, talking about my finds from thrift stores, my finds from garage sales, and delivering to my readers' inbox every single Thursday morning. If you haven't checked them out yet, jump on over to flipweekly.com. There's a button on the website where you can see all the past issues. They include, photos, buying prices, selling prices, profit, all that sort of stuff, along with, some tips, some tricks that I've learned along the way. If you go back too far, though, you're going to see some of the issues from February, which is when I knew nothing about reselling, I guess. And yeah, they're quite bad. I've had some bad buys over the years, but having done this for almost a year now, I'm slowly getting better and better. And I figured, why not move over to a podcast where I can give you some more information, because it's obviously easier to talk than it is to write. And I guess this sort of niche, buying and selling items, leads itself to needing more information. The ideal way to get that too would be through a video, which is why I've gone from a text-based medium to now an audio-based medium. Maybe 3 years in the future, I'll decide to do video, but at the moment, I don't really want my face on the internet. It's already on there enough, so I figured let's just do a podcast. It's easier to consume. I know that not many people enjoy reading. It can be a bit of a slog, especially when you don't have a great author. And, it takes time. Whereas, a podcast, you can chuck it on in the background and, go about your day, and you can just have my droning voice in your ear, going throughout your house, whatever. And so that's basically why I decided to start the podcast. I also figured it was a good way to help grow. It's just another avenue to find new readers, to expand the audience, and engage a bit more with people like you that read the newsletter. I get some nice comments and some feedback from the newsletter, whether it's like emails direct to my inbox or Instagram DMs and Facebook comments, that sort of thing. So I'm hoping to have some sort of engagement, I guess. What would you call it? Like an engagement session with this podcast where you guys can write in and I can give you my horrible takes on things and answer some questions and just, engage a bit more. It's not just one-sided like an email. Like you have my email come in and then it's like, great, what next? Nothing. Just go on about your life. Maybe this can increase engagement a bit, but the main thing is I'm just wanting to share more information. That's it. I just want to give you guys some more insight into reselling, some more insight into what I'm buying and what I'm selling and what sells and what doesn't sell. And I think that's a good thing. It's a way to help you. It's a way to just provide more information. That's all I'm here to do. So I thought with this podcast it will be basically the newsletter format, except audio based. I'll go through each week items that I buy, items that I sell, do some Q&As and tell a few stories and try and get that to you on a consistent basis. The newsletter comes out every Thursday morning, 9 a.m. I'll work out the best time for the podcast to be released. I'll make sure it's consistent, just like the newsletter. Like I said, I've done the newsletter for the past basically year. It's been a slog, honestly. The amount of words that I've written, once I added them all up, was mind-blowing to me. I didn't realize that, I'd basically written a Harry Potter book twice. It's a lot of content to consume. And when I think back of when I started Flip Weekly, not knowing what I was doing and not knowing how long I would spend on the newsletter, it's eye-opening, really. I didn't expect to be doing this for this long. I remember when I first got into reselling, it was a random YouTube video that came across my feed. I have no idea why. I wasn't I wasn't watching, garage sale stuff or flipping stuff. I'm sure my YouTube feed was filled with, I don't like Gordon Ramsay videos and just comedy podcasts, that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden I get I think it was a Froggy Flips garage sale video where he went out to a bunch of garage sales buying cool items. If you don't know who Froggy Flips is, I guess he's a OG YouTuber that does this sort of content, or he did this sort of content on YouTube, and it's entertaining. He's sort of transitioned more now to collecting, I guess, but he still has all that back catalog, which is what came across on my YouTube feed. And he just went to a garage sale and found some cool shit, and I was like, oh, this looks like fun. So I still remember the very first garage sale I went to. I had a buddy with me, and it was just up the road, really. It was somebody moving house or clearing out their house. And the funniest thing is that it was exactly like the YouTube video I'd watched. It wasn't a modern day garage sale that I go to where it's filled with like glasses and bowls and like cloths, just random cloths that have probably got like $15 price tags on them. They were really cool, unique items. And it was just a lot of fun because I remember being there with my buddy and going through this entire house, finding like, I think I found a Game Boy game. Upon leaving, there was like a box full of media, and just like on the YouTube video, I was like, oh, how much do you want for the box? And they're like, oh, $20. I was like, yeah, like I'll take it. So loaded up like this huge box into the car, and I remember getting back home and it felt like Christmas time, and I felt the same excitement that I had when I was watching the YouTube video, where I was going through the box and I was like, oh my God, like a Nintendo game, a Game Boy game, like PlayStation games, and then just all this like exciting stuff that, I mean, you don't really find at garage sales anymore, or you do, but it's like not the very first time you go. And from that moment, I was addicted. Like I was like, okay, I can see myself doing this. I spent $20 and I looked up comps for some of the things, and the very first item was the Game Boy game, and I think that sold for like, I don't know, $25. And I thought, wow, I'm in the profit just on this one item. I have an entire box full of stuff left. This seems like an easy way to make money. It's a lot of fun, going through other people's shit. When it's good stuff is the best thing ever for me. When it's not good stuff, there's not enough hand sanitizer that you can bring with you. But from that moment, I was addicted, and I've been doing it really ever since, besides a few odd weekends here and there where it's been raining, I've had things on, I haven't been able to fit it into my schedule. I've been going to garage sales basically every single Saturday morning, and I've made it a part of my routine, and it's fun. I wake up early on a Saturday morning, and I have my items prepped and ready to go. When I say items, I mean I have my water bottle that's cold in its little thermos thing. I have like any road snacks that I need. I started out with like apple pieces and grapes, and moved on to like gummy bears and minties, and to the point where I got like a bag of minties for Christmas, and then jump in the car and just check out what's out there. I'd use a website called garagesalefinder.com.au, I'm pretty sure, to find the garage sales in the area. And I'd make a little route. I'd make a little route of where I'd be going on that day, and then I would just drive around and go to one after the other, try and find cool shit to sell online. And that has been my life for the past 40, 50 weeks. On Saturday mornings, I'd get up at 6, 7 a.m. and I'd be home before lunchtime, and depending whether or not I went somewhere else after sales, whatever. But it just didn't take that long. I didn't spend that much money, but I was having a lot of fun, and I was buying some really cool stuff that was able to make me money. So, I mean, what I'm trying to say is that this has been something that I've really enjoyed. I've really enjoyed finding cool stuff and writing about it too, really getting feedback on some of those items from you guys has been like rewarding as well, like just that back and forth has been has been something that has kept me going to garage sales, and sharing that with you has been, really, really fun. So, I mean, beside, like, as long as something doesn't happen in the future, I don't see myself stopping from doing this. It's still fun. It's still something that I enjoy. It hasn't become a chore. I think when you turn something into, I don't know, when it's not something that you what I'm trying to say is that, when you do something enough times, it can feel like a chore, and it hasn't felt like that for me. I think because I haven't made it my life, even though I do have like addictive tendencies, it's not something that has consumed my life. Yeah. And, it's easy to not get sick of doing something when you're making a lot of money. Well, when you're making money doing it. I'm not making a lot of money. I'm making like a good side hustle income, I guess. So yeah, I don't see myself stopping anytime soon. I'm wanting to be as consistent with the podcast as I am with the newsletter. And that's, every single week putting something out. I think when it comes to growth too, consistency is obviously important. And that is what I've been trying to do. I want to be in your life at least that, I want to be in your life at least that once a week. And if I can do, the newsletter and the podcast, then I can be, that intrusive person in your life, sort of like your Elon Musk's to Donald Trump right now. Something there for the politics people. But yeah, that's the goal with the podcast. That's a bit of information about me too. There's so much more information on the website, flipweekly.com, where you can go through all of the past newsletter issues. They're all there. You don't have to pay anything. You don't even have to sign up. You only have to subscribe to the newsletter if you want it coming into your inbox once a week. You don't even have to do that. You could just go on the website and view all the past issues. They're all free. No paywall. Yeah, they're just there. A whole bunch of content, photos, no video, but a whole bunch of photos and content. So yeah, that's the plan. And then for this podcast episode, what I wanted to do was just go through 2024's top 10 list for the year. Yeah, because we've just come into 2025. I'm not entirely sure when I'll be putting this out yet. I think I've practiced the intro maybe about 10 times and deleted it instantly. And this is the first time I've made it past 10 minutes and not, rage quit. So yeah, I'd go through the top 10 for 2024. 2024, like I said, was the first year I started doing this, but some of the things that I found, some of the items that I bought and sold, like I was so surprised at how much they were selling for, how quickly they were selling, and just not how easy they were to find, but for items that have been described as super rare online, and I was able to find like multiple of them throughout the year. That is just wow. So let's go through the top 10 and yeah. All right, let's go through the top 10 flips of 2024. And we're starting with number 10, which is a Warhammer 40K book. And if you're not familiar with Warhammer, it's basically like a tabletop game, not so much a board game as it is buying a bunch of plastic figurines and painting them. It's an extremely expensive hobby. As a kid, I had friends that I guess played Warhammer. If that's the right terminology for buying pieces of plastic and painting them, playing Warhammer. I convinced my mum to buy me a set of these plastic figurines, and then I had a friend paint them, and I'm pretty sure he kept them too. That's how much I was interested in the hobby. So I guess I was sort of familiar with the niche, not even the niche, with the game. It sounds weird to call it a game because, I mean, people paint rocks too. It's not a game. Yeah. So yeah, I saw a whole bunch of these Warhammer books at a thrift store, a couple of bucks each. They're on the very bottom shelf, and I'd never bought or sold Warhammer merchandise before. They have a Warhammer movie. They have books, video games, all sorts of paraphernalia. And I think I looked one up, and at the time when I was in the thrift store, I saw sold comps for like $100, and I was like, "What the fuck is Warhammer?" Something like something that you have to buy if you see them. And I think I legit got like 10 books, and this book called Watches of the Throne, The Regent's Shadow. It was $4 and it sold for $185 for a book. A book sold for $185 for this extremely expensive hobby. And if you read the newsletter, you'll be able to see that my photography isn't the greatest. I don't really have a workstation. I don't have professional photography equipment, not even lights. I use natural sunlight, and they still sold for, it still sold for $185. So I guess what that means is that if you have a really, really good item, people don't care so much about what it looks like in a photo. I think more so if you're selling like quote unquote bread and butter items, that is, you need to stand out in a way. So good photography is definitely going to help. But when I'm buying stuff, I'm not buying bread and butter items. I'm looking for unique and interesting things that you don't see every day. You'll never see me buy like a pair of jeans every single week. I think I've bought 2 pairs of jeans, and they were just because they had NBA logos all over them, and they were worth like $200 each. But yeah, I'm looking for unique and interesting items that sell for like at least $100. Like I'm trying to turn like $1, $5 into $100. Like I want my average sale price to be about $100 because I don't want to have to trek like the 4-minute walk to the post office because that's 4 minutes too long. So yeah, this Warhammer book is something that I would say everything on this list is going to be something to keep an eye out for, because everything is going to be selling for more than $185 because this is number 10 on the list. And yeah, this is a part of the series called the Horus Heresy series, whatever it's called. And it's made up of 64 books, and there's sold comps of the series, not even 64, not even a complete set of like 40 books, and they sold for $3,500. So you need to be looking out for Warhammer in thrift stores and garage sales, and if you see something, buy it, because these things can sell for a lot of money, and it's not something that is incredibly rare either, I don't think, because I've been to garage sales before and there's been Warhammer stuff, and every single item I've picked up, I've sold. I don't think I'm sitting on any Warhammer stuff. So good market. Facebook Marketplace and eBay were good for it. I've sold Warhammer stuff on both platforms. So, Warhammer 100%. I'd probably buy it again if I find it in the wild, just because of those comps. Okay, so number 9, we have a Panasonic DVD VCR combo. Extremely exciting product here. Cost me $10 and sold for $199.95. This is something that I always look out for at garage sales, because they're an item that people think is such old technology that it's worth, $5 or $10. But really, these are minimum $100 on eBay if you're selling them. Like, I don't think I've ever listed a VCR combo, like VCR DVD combo, for less than $100. Even just a VCR player by itself, for me, has always been at least $100. So this is something that you'll find at garage sales for less than $10, unless the person knows what it is, which I don't think I've ever come across somebody that knows, like, a VHS player, VCR player sells for a lot of money online. But yeah, this one was $10 at a garage sale. You can even see the $10 sticker on it. Came with all the cords and the remote. That's what you want to be looking out for when you're buying these. If there's no remote, ask the person running the sale, do you have the remote? Do you know where the remote is? Because the remote, you can chuck a premium on it. And this one sold for $200. And I think if I didn't have the remote, I couldn't command like such a premium, or it wouldn't sell as quickly. And off memory, this sold in like 3 days. Actually, tell a lie, it says 4 days in the newsletter. So this thing sold quickly. It sold for a lot. Was it 200? Yeah, $200, $199.95. And when I looked up comps for the latest newsletter, I could see that the prices have only gone up. Like, they're sold comps for $300. So yes, DVD VCR combos, buy. You won't be disappointed unless you take it home and it doesn't work, in which case you can be disappointed. But you can also sell it for parts and still get some money out of it. I'm sure you'd be able to sell it for parts for more than what you actually buy it for at a garage sale, unless you severely overpay. But yeah, definitely keep an eye out for those. And then number 8, okay. We have something that I like to look out for at thrift stores. We have a signed book of Olivia Newton-John's biography from 2019. She's written a little, I guess, a saying in the book along with her signature, and that has sold for $200, and it was bought for $8. So I go on and on and on about autographed books in thrift stores. Whenever there's a biography or a popular book, anything like that, I'll pick it up, I'll open the first page, and I'll see if there's a signature, because a signature can turn a book from like $5 into, in this case, $200, because people love collecting. I mean, if you're a book collector, you're looking for first editions, you're looking for signed autographed books. I mean, even me, I'm not the biggest collector, but even I still look online at times for like Norm Macdonald, one of my favorite comedians, his signed book. It hasn't come up, it's not active at the moment, but if I found it in the wild, this is like a book that would be like worth $1,000 easily. So yeah, autographed books, 100%. It really depends on who the person is, though. Like, if somebody's alive still, it's not going to be worth that much. Like, I don't know. Some of these Comic-Con people, they make a living going to Comic-Con and signing things. They might have been a movie star in the 80s, and they go to these Comic-Con places to get photos taken, and they give out autographs, or they give them out if you pay. But those autographs, they're not worth as much. The more, I guess, reclusive the person and popular they are, the more money they're going to sell for. I mean, it's just basic common sense. And unfortunately, Olivia Newton-John passed away. And, she was such a beloved person, not just in Australia, but overseas too. She was in the movie Grease. She had such an amazing voice. She toured with people that were, famous as hell, like John Travolta's best friend, right? Like, I knew her from her concerts with John Farnham. My mum's a massive Johnny Boy fan, and she would always perform with him. So yeah, this was just an amazing find, and it sold, I think, in 2 hours, and it sold overseas. So they paid like an additional like $60 on top for postage. So yeah, you need to be keeping an eye out for these signed books. Like they can turn a $5 book into $200, like I said. So definitely keep an eye out for those signed books. I know that I'm going to be saying at the end of all of these, keep an eye out for it. But yeah, I'm just reiterating the point, which is when we get to number 7, another book. This one is a book that's out of print. It is a book by Spanian, who is a YouTuber. He wrote this. I mean, he definitely didn't write this book, but his story, this is his story about his life. It was written probably about 4 years ago, and it's out of print, like I said. So this book is not available in like stores or online anymore, like on like the publishing website. The only way you can get it is via, secondary markets like eBay. So this guy is now super popular here in like the Pacific region, and the book prices have just blown up. Like $250 is almost the minimum that you'll get for this book. And it's going to be hard to find this in the wild, but there is a lesson here, and that is how I found out about the book, and also learning about out of print books. So how I learned about the book was literally just browsing Marketplace one day, and I was familiar with this YouTuber because he's so popular here, and I saw his book on Marketplace, and the person was asking for $200, and that pure curiosity, I was like, Jesus, like, why is that? Went onto eBay, checked the sold comps, saw that price was accurate, and it just got me digging to see that, oh, it's out of print. You'll often see in eBay titles OOP, which means out of print. They're not making them anymore. So that is how I learn about it. And you can just do it. Like, just be curious. You can just do a Google search, not a Google search, an eBay search for OOP in the book category of eBay and just see what is out there. You can do it for basically any sort of media category too. And, DVDs, you can see out of print DVDs. Like, I want to write a list of some of the if I was going to do a top 10 list, top 10 out of print DVDs that aren't that rare, that you can find them, like you can find them in a thrift store and sell them for a lot of money. Like, for example, just to give you a couple now, just what's that movie with Cillian Murphy that's coming out 28 years later? So that's coming out this year or next year. But one of those earlier ones, I think it's 28 weeks or 28 days later, they're all out of print now and they're hard to find. So that it's like I say they're hard to find. They're out of print and they're expensive on eBay, but they're not something that you would see in a thrift store and expect that to be worth a lot of money. It's something that you would see in a thrift store and it sort of blends in because it was such a big movie, like big blockbuster movie, that it wouldn't be put aside or put into a cabinet. It would just be labeled like 2-for-1 DVDs, 28 weeks later, 28 days later, whatever. You can get it for $1 yourself for $50. They're just titles that I think look like every other DVD. Like another one, for example, speaking of Olivia Newton-John earlier, is she had a concert with John Farnham and Anthony Warlow called The Main Event. And I think, any mother that's in their 50s or 60s right now has probably heard of The Main Event with John Farnham, or any kid like me, any 30-year-old bloke with a mother knows about The Main Event. And you see those CDs all the time in thrift stores, but the DVD of it's out of print and it's like $70. So, just doing an eBay search for out of print and seeing what there is, you'd be surprised. And then you can, when you're looking at in the DVD section, if that's the category that you do, you'll be able to like refer back to your knowledge of out of print DVDs, and you'll be able to pick up something instead of just, scanning every single DVD and just standing there for 30 minutes wasting your time. You'll be able to do your little scans and find something that's worth some money. So that is how I found out about this book. It sold for $250. I don't think it took very long to sell either. I think the sell-through rate on these books at the moment is it's what I got here, 240%. Sorry. So 240% means that the book will sell within 90 days. Okay, number 6. We have a huge topic in my newsletter back in the day. Earlier last year. Is that even a thing? Earlier last year. Number 6 is a Sydney Seeger World hat from 1997. The bought price was $2 and it sold for $250. So we're getting up there in price right now. $250 for a hat. This was, I actually remember the exact day that I picked this up. It was my introduction to Seeger World Sydney, which was a entertainment, not an arcade place, but not really a theme park either, sort of like a mix between the two. And that was operating in Sydney back in the day. And I'd never heard of it because I guess my parents never took me there. Boo-hoo. And it closed down. And like most things, it gets a cult audience. No, most things don't get a cult audience. Most things are forgotten about. But Seeger World Sydney has a huge following. People collect this stuff, items from the, I'm just going to say amusement park, even though it might not be an amusement park. It's just easy to say. People collect items from this amusement park and they go for a lot of money. Like I put in the newsletter that a cup, a mug, literally a mug just with the branding, sold in December last year for $400 for a mug, something you drink out of. A fucking mug. Like, it's so much money. It honestly blows my mind a bit. Like $400 for a mug. But yeah, I found this hat and I didn't know anything about Seagull World Sydney. I think I did a quick Google search when I was in the thrift store for Seagull World Sydney, I think just to see if it was still open. That's how engaged I am with the Sydney community. And I saw that it had shut, and I think I just picked it up because it was $2 and it had 1997 on it. So I gave it a shot and brought it home, and I did a bit more research into Seagull World Sydney, and turns out if you find something from there, you're in for a lot of money. So I listed it for $300 and it sold 4 days later for $250 on a best offer. I probably could have held out because it is a rarer Seagull World Sydney item, but, you know, having that $250 offer came in, you know, it's hard to turn down $250 when you buy something for $2, you know. So yeah, I was really happy with that. If you're in Sydney, the chances are you're going to find this stuff more than if you're in America or if you're sadly in a place like Victoria. But yeah, it's something that I keep an eye out for. Any Sonic item I see in the wild, I get excited thinking, oh, here we go, Seagull World Sydney. And then it's like, I don't know, some Benson's Trading Company or a Show Bags item, which if you're familiar, yeah, horrible. But yeah, that isn't the only Seagull World Sydney item I have on this top 10 list. There's another one that sold for even more money. So let's get to that. But first we have number 5, which is a Transformers toy. It was bought for $40 and it sold for $280. This was my first introduction to Transformers, buying and selling Transformers. Since then, because of this sale, I think in my head, I've always thought that like, oh yeah, Transformers is good. Like, yeah, it sells really well. I don't know if that's like the truth for me, just for items that I find to do with Transformers. I think this was like a one-off in terms of big money Transformers. But yeah, this was a really good sale. I got it in February of 2024. So a year ago when I was just starting out, I saw it in a glass cabinet in a thrift store and I looked up comps and I saw like hundreds. And I was like, why are they only charging $40 for it? Like usually thrift stores there, if they see something that is worth hundreds, they're going to charge thousands. But I think they just didn't look up the right item. And that is still something that happens to this day. They find an item, they don't know the exact one. They see like this one, it's a character called Bulkhead. I don't know anything about Bulkhead, but I do know how to use search engines better than some thrift store employees or volunteers. So I think they might have just like Googled or eBayed Bulkhead Transformers and one of the first items would have been like a more like an item that there would be more of them. So like a 2024 item and it's not going to be as much money because it's more prevalent in society. Whereas this one from 2007, there's not going to be that many of them on eBay, so they're not going to find this. So I was able to pick it up for $40, sold for $280. Yeah, I don't remember that much more else about it except that it fit perfectly into a wine box for shipping. Like it slid in perfectly. It's one of the only things I remember about this toy. Apart from the payday, good item. I would definitely keep an eye out for Transformers if they're in boxes. I think that would be the items that I pick up in the future. And also, you know, checking out the copyright dates on stuff to see what year they're from, because in an ideal world, the older they are, they're worth more. So yeah, aiming for like, you know, before 20, I mean, I'm just pulling this number out, 2015. But yeah, check all the numbers, check the copyright date, see where it's from, make sure you're searching for the correct item, chuck in those years, otherwise you're going to get your comps all wrong, just like this thrift store. But yeah, moving on to number 4, and we have the other Seagull World Sydney t-shirt. Other Seagull World Sydney item, which is a t-shirt. That was bought for $20 and it sold for $299.99, so $300. So I picked this up at a garage sale within Sydney, and I knew about Sega World Sydney because of the hat from February of last year. So I got this for $20, like I said, at a garage sale. The story here was that I was looking throughout their items. They had a whole wall of VHS, and I don't really pick up that much VHS unless it's going to be something that's like worth it, $50 or so, just because they're so like, they're so easy to ruin in terms of like the mold on them, or they don't play. The testing issues are a pain in the ass. But I saw one VHS that was a Sonic VHS, and like I said, if I see something Sonic in the wild, I'm like, oh, here we go, Sega World Sydney. But this was just a regular Sonic VHS. It was worth about $50, so I did pick it up. And I was chatting to the people that were running it, and they were like, oh, you're a Sonic fan? I was like, oh, yeah, sure, whatever. I like how much he makes me. I didn't say that. And the husband went inside and brought out this Sega World Sydney t-shirt. And he's like, did you know about like Sega World Sydney? And I was like, yeah, I'm familiar with it. He's like, yeah, it closed down and the t-shirts online, like the items online are worth like $100. And I'm like, well, they're worth a bit more than that. And I was like, oh yeah, can I have a look at it? I had a look at it. I could see that was in really good condition. I could see, Sonic on the pocket. I could see the Sega World Sydney tag on the top of it. And I was like, oh, how much do you want for it? He's like, I'm an R-ing for a bit. And he's like, $20. And I guess I had to hide my excitement. And I was like, yeah, I think I could do that. And yeah, I mean, I got that. I got the VHS. I think the VHS was like $5, which I was happy to pay considering I just got a t-shirt that I knew was going to sell for hundreds of dollars. I did feel a bit bad because the one was like, we're giving you a good price because we can tell you're a Sonic fan. And I was like, oh, can you? Like, horrible judge of people. But no, they were nice. And I was really happy to get another Sega World Sydney item. And yeah, it sold within hours. It was off to, I think it was off to America, or it was an overseas purchase. So they paid like an extra $50-$60 for postage. And yeah, they were really happy with it. They left me really good feedback on eBay. Like, I've been looking for this for a while. It's like my holy grail type item. Thank you so much. And, felt like a hero. All right, moving on to number 3. We have a manga of, I don't know if it's like an anime, if anime is just video, if it's like an anime manga. But anyway, it's a set of books. It's a set of 21 books that I paid $31 for and sold for $370. So I was in a bit of a stage at one point where I was looking for manga, and I was looking for these sort of like Japanese books in thrift stores because they seem to sell for a lot of money. I'm not sure why. I think if I was to guess, it would be because they have limited runs, because any small studio can create them, and, printing out books can get expensive, especially if you don't have a large audience, which I have a lot of familiarity. I have a lot of that with printing books. But anyway, this was the complete set. So I think that's why I was able to get such a premium for it. $370. It sold in a couple of days. I think my tips for manga, you want consecutive volumes. You don't want to get like volume 1, volume 8, and volume 13. You want to try and get either the complete set or at least sequential sets, because who wants to read like volume 1 of a book and then jump forward to volume 8? It just doesn't make any sense. So you want to do that. I have a few tips in the newsletter for spotting manga. You can tell based on things on the spine and also the top of the book. The top of the book looks a lot darker than regular books because, the entire inside of the book is like comics. It's like darker print. So you can see that on the top of the book. Check out the newsletter for more info about that. But yeah, this was a good purchase, 31 into 370. I remember the exact thrift store I bought this from, and I also love the conversations when you take this up to the counter and they ask you all about it as if I'm expert in manga. But yeah, $370, it's a lot of money, and it's something to keep an eye out for. Okay, number 2. We're almost there. Bear with me. We have the sister to manga anime. We have Sailor Moon VHS, volume 1 to 13, plus the uncut movie, bought price for $50, sold for $500. That is crazy. I got this from Jesus, what was that? I bought this from Facebook Marketplace. It was a combo deal. It was a combo deal of a VHS player plus these VHS for $150. And I sold the VHS player like pretty much straight away because, as I said, VHS players sell fast. And I was just left with these. They did take a while to sell. I have to admit, I mean, it must have been like 6-7 months, but they were getting constant attention. They were getting like hundreds of views on eBay. And also, I swear by the end, it was like 50 people watching it. It was just so many people wanted this item, but the price was just, $500. Nobody wants to just blow $500 on a couple of tapes. It sold around Christmas time, so it must have been a Christmas present to somebody, or they bought it for themselves, which is great. But yeah, anime on VHS seems to do really, really well. Like, I'm not an anime guy, but seeing anime VHS on eBay, it seems to just go off. So I guess keep an eye out for it in the VHS section of thrift stores if your thrift store has VHS sections, and just look for anything that looks, sort of Japanese, right? Like, and pick it up. Like the VHS are going to be like $1, $2, because again, it's old technology and people don't value that unless they know what they're looking for. So you can just envision finding it at a garage sale too, just in a box of old, Sailor Moon, or something to keep an eye out for. Everything's something to keep an eye out for. And then we come to number 1. Number 1, a Canberra Raiders 1997 Nike Super League jersey. Bought price for $15, sold price for $550. So 15 into $550. Wow. It's a lot of money. A lot of money. It was just sitting there on the end of a clothing rack too. It wasn't like I didn't have to search throughout clothes. It had been put on the end, just like waiting for me, literally just standing there waiting for me to pick it up and take it home. I wish some things were that easy. But yeah, $15, $550 selling price. It sold near Christmas time too. And it sort of had the same trajectory of the Sailor Moon tapes, where ton of views, ton of watches, and just nobody pulling the trigger just yet because it's $550 and it's a piece of clothing. But yeah, somebody pulled the trigger at Christmas time, and I guess it's a Christmas present for somebody or for themselves, which is great. Jerseys are a piece of clothing that I always look out for. I think they're easy to spot because they always have the same sort of color patterns, like normal clothes. They're usually like, you have a black t-shirt, you have a white t-shirt. You don't usually have like bright green, bright yellow mixed in as one in like this horrible fluoro color. So I do find them easy to spot in thrift stores, and they're all usually priced the same because for whatever reason, the thrift store employees think that all jerseys are created equal, which is fine for us. But yeah, they're not. A jersey in 2024 might be worth $50, but go back to 1994 and it's going to be worth a lot more, especially for this one that I found. Like, this is from 1997, $550. There was a special year within this sporting league too, where they went to like this super league thing. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but each year is different and they're all worth checking out. Most thrift stores, they have jerseys, but they're just from people donating like their kids' jerseys or their local sporting team's jerseys. So they're not worth much. They're probably worth nothing, to be honest. Like, nobody wants this small town's jersey unless there's some sort of historical significance of it. But in most cases, it's not, So they're all worth checking out. It's worth getting to know some of your sporting teams, like in your country, wherever you're listening from. The big ones too, they're worth getting to know because, 15 into $550, I don't really have to say more, right? Like it's a lot of money. It's something to keep an eye out for. Jerseys, they're always going to sell. There's jersey collectors. Throughout the year, I was offered money for this, but I just kept turning it down because I thought I could wait this out and get the full amount, which I did. And I was really happy with that purchase, and I remember the day picking it up and just like saying to somebody, I think I just bought like a $500 jersey. And then them obviously telling me to fuck off. And then I went to the counter and I remember handing it over, and the lady behind the counter, she gave me a funny look and just was like holding it behind her back, almost like insinuating that I can't buy this. And I thought, oh, they must know what this is. They must realize that, oh, that shouldn't be $15. That should be $150. I still would have bought it. But yeah, she gave me that look and I was like, oh, fuck, here we go. But really, all she was saying to me, she was playing around. She was like, oh, Canberra Raiders, like, I can't sell this to you. I'm a Manly supporter. And I did cheeky little laugh and was hoping like, yeah, can you give me the fucking jersey now? and left. And, the rest is history. That was my number one top seller for 2024. I'm really hoping that 2025, I have something that sells for more than $550. I have a couple of items on eBay right now that exceed that amount. Whether or not they'll sell by this time next year, one of them has got a ton of views already, just nobody biting the bullet. And yeah, I don't know. If somebody will do that this year, I'll be happy. I'd love to write another top 10 list next year with number 10 starting at $550. But yeah, I guess we'll see. All right, it is time for the Q&A portion of the podcast. This is a chance for you to write into me. I'll answer your questions. I'll see what you have to say. I'll decide whether or not I talk about it. This week, for the very first time, we have I think it's a question, and I apologize in advance for my reading comprehension skills. Yeah. Hi, Matt. This is Sarah from Melbourne. I've been reading the newsletter and I'm stoked you're starting a podcast. Quick question. How do you decide whether something is worth flipping, especially when it's a bit of a gamble? Like, I once passed on a vintage Lego set because I wasn't sure, and I still wonder if I missed out. Any tips on taking the leap with items like that? Well, you wasn't sure about what? That's the thing. You wasn't sure about spending an obscene amount of money at a thrift store for Lego, or you weren't sure with the condition of the box. Like, it really depends. Like, I've been burnt with Lego before. I've bought Lego from a thrift store, took it home, and lo and behold, there's pieces missing, which shouldn't come as a surprise, really. These things are being donated to thrift stores with open boxes, and just think, like, when you're taking items to a thrift store, you're putting them in bags, and those bags are being shook up, and pieces can come out of a box. Like, it's just a cardboard box, so it shouldn't come as a surprise, really. I only buy sealed Lego from now on, unless it's like ultra rare and valuable. So I guess with this vintage Lego set that you're talking about, if it was rare, if you're looking it up on eBay and you can see it's like the only one available, then that is something that I would take a gamble on because I'm a gambler. But, if you're a businesswoman and you're not wanting to take a gamble, then you'd leave it behind. For me, I think with vintage items like Lego, there's value in all of the pieces, regardless of if it's complete. If you get a 2024 Lego set, you'd want it to be complete or it'd be virtually worthless. But when it comes to that older stuff, people might have existing sets, but they're wanting, or over time they've lost pieces and they're wanting to complete the set, so they're going to pay more, and that's when you chuck up like the instruction manual. You chuck up every single individual piece. It's an effort, but there are times where that works and you can make more money piecing out vintage items like that. For me personally, I wouldn't bother, just because, once you get home with that Lego set and it's open, you're going to have to, you have two choices really. You can yeet it off the balcony, or you can decide that you're going to count every single piece, and you need to make sure it's complete. Because if you list it as complete on eBay and it's not complete, the seller's going to fuck you hard. The buyer actually is going to fuck you hard. eBay will fuck you hard too. So either way, you're going to get fucked, and you don't want that. So you're going to have to count each individual piece, or at least put the set together and then sell it as either incomplete or complete. And that for me is a time sink. I don't really want to be doing that unless it's like a Lego set where you pay $5, and if it's complete, it's worth 10 grand. In that like hypothetical, I would take that gamble because I'm a gambling man. I get enjoyment out of gambling. My bank account doesn't, my accountant hates it, but that's just the reality of buying open products like Lego or, God forbid, puzzles. So yeah, I mean, how do you get over it? Is that what the question was? How do you get over passing on something? I once passed on a vintage Lego set because I wasn't sure. Okay, I mean, if you passed on it, I think just move on. There's no point dwelling on an item that you've not bought. Someone else has bought it. They've either made money or they've not made money, and there's no reason why you should just be thinking about that. There's hundreds of more items available at thrift stores and garage sales across the country that you don't need to be dwelling on one item, like plenty of fish in the sea type thing, but I mean plenty of junk in the wild. So yeah, I wouldn't worry about it. Any tips on taking the leap with items like that? I just get weigh up the pros and cons in the moment. Just trust your gut with that sort of thing. I always think in my brain when I always think, is that the most redundant sentence? I always think in my brain. I always think when I'm out in the wild and I see Lego, I think this would be good if it was complete, but chances are it's not. And then I just think, no, I'm not going to buy it. So yeah, I mean, don't dwell on it, move on, weigh up the options. And I mean, for me, I avoid Lego if it's open. It's up to you whether you do the same. And yeah, that's about it. But yep, that's it. That's the podcast. Thanks again for listening. If you made it all the way through, I appreciate you. Make sure that you subscribe to the podcast, however that works. I'm not sure how. This is going to be on Spotify and all those sort of streaming platforms. So chuck us a like, chuck us a comment, chuck us a review, chuck us whatever. And yeah, I'll see you again next week.
Flip, 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 flip.
Flip Weekly.